I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safe.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey, folks. Welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. It's a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is kind of a special midweek episode. Thank you so much for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week this week. Thank you to all of you who are new listeners, maybe who have joined the show since we started doing the Duty to Defend series, which we are still in the middle of. Really do appreciate all the feedback we have gotten, and that is exactly what today's show is all about. Today's show is about the some feedback that we've gotten and responding to some feedback. And I wanted to jump in here and do something that I haven't done in a while. Most of the Duty to Defend series so far has been pre-recorded because it has been an absolute nightmare, crazy season here at the Armed Lutheran compound. For those of you who know what's been going on, thank you so much for your prayers and your concerns, especially for my wife and her family as a result of the loss of her mother. We got back from North Carolina recently after a week in North Carolina attending the funeral. My wife had been there for 2 previous weeks, caring for her mother and being with her at the very end. And then I and my daughter packed up the car and met my son halfway up the road, about 9 hours up the road, and drove to North Carolina, attended the funeral in the middle of the week, and then drove back at the end. It was a nightmare drive back, trying to avoid all the catastrophically bad traffic in Atlanta. We got home extremely late on a Saturday. I think it was about midday on a Saturday. Caught up on some sleep Saturday and Sunday, and then got back to work. Then 2 days later, turned around and flew to Atlanta for a volleyball tournament, for a 3-day tournament for my daughter. And then suffered through all the craziness and delays, got back very late Sunday night, this past Sunday, and then turned around and got back to work. That whole time, in the 2 weeks leading up to our trip to North Carolina, and ever since we've gotten back, I have also been working on upgrades for work for clients, and that has kept me constantly busy. So there just hasn't been time to do a show with the other members of the cast, which I would love to do. We will soon be getting back to whatever normal is. I'm hoping that toward the end of the month, we will have our first online hangout of the year. And then we will get back to whatever semi-normal is like. I would love to get back with the pastor and catch up on what's been happening with him. And so there's stuff in the works, but it's down the road still, probably a few weeks away. So bear with me. What I've been doing in the meantime, thank goodness, and it's something that I've been wanting to do for a while, for those of you who haven't listened to the recent episodes, is to go through many of the articles in Duty to Defend, the book, and kind of read through them, give some context, and talk about them in a little bit further, expand on them a little bit on the articles in the book, from the book. And that's what we've been doing, and it's garnered a lot of feedback. Most of it from. I've gotten a few emails, and most of the comments are coming from the YouTube channel. Be sure to check that out, by the way, armedlutheran.us/YouTube. Mostly it is the audio version of the podcast, but it's also got some other special things on there, live shows and so forth. So be sure to check that out, subscribe, like, all of that good stuff, so that the YouTube channel gains some more traction and gets some more followers. That would be great, would be greatly appreciated. Let's get right into the comments. I'm not going to go through all of them. I think this is probably going to be several episodes worth. So I wanted to go through a few, though, and bring those and respond to them. And I thought that would be a fun show to do in the middle of the week. That wouldn't take a whole lot of planning and preparation that, say, a review of an article would, or a live show or so forth. Just hasn't been time to really sit down and plan a whole lot for the podcast lately because of personal issues. And I appreciate all of your forbearance during that, your prayers, your thoughts, and your well wishes. I really do appreciate it, and I'm glad you're sticking around and you're still here. And so let's get into it. Okay, so our first comment, and this is from a regular commenter, someone you will hear lots of comments from, and this is from the YouTube channel. Merwin Wren is the commenter, and thank you, Merwin, for all of the comments that you have submitted. I really do appreciate it. His first comment, not specifically about any one of these articles, but about the book in general. Just finished Duty to Defend, second edition. Excellent reference, a good read as well. Thank you so much, Merwin. I really do appreciate that. That is exactly what I was going for, to make a good reference for Christians who are interested in the gun rights debate and the way that God's word is used on both sides of the debate. Mostly misused. And I'm glad you're finding the book useful. Merwin, like I said, by the way, is probably our YouTube channel's most active commenter. So you're going to be hearing more from him as we go forward, including our next comment, which is in response to episode 433, the article where we covered the article called Vengeance is Mine. And Merwin writes, this is about manifest intent. If one removes an attacker from this world in defense of himself or others, it is our duty to do so. If it is retribution or vengeance for a previous act, the defender loses the mantle of innocence and must answer for it. One is to stop an attack in progress, while the other may stop future attacks, which is not our duty, but that of the authorities. That is absolutely correct. That is a perfectly well stated. Your authority as a Christian, as a citizen, unless you are an agent of the state, like a police officer, your authority extends only to stopping an attack in progress. And once the attacker has fled, once they leave the scene and break contact with you, it's now for the state to handle, not for you to continue to pursue and to continue that confrontation. If you continue your aggression, your contact with the original aggressor after he's broken contact with you, things flip and you become the aggressor. And now you're getting into that vengeance area. And even earthly laws won't protect you if you harm someone in that case. So again, thank you, Merwin. I should have held my thanks because my next comment is also from Merwin. This one is in response to episode 434, the Thief in the Night, which is the first article that we reviewed. Or the first article in the book, it's not the first article, but it's the first article that reviews a Bible verse. In this case, it's Exodus 22, verse 2. And Merwin writes, Exodus 22:2 pretty much justifies castle doctrine. Your home really is your castle, and an attack on the structure is an attack on those living in it. That is correct to a point. An attack on the structure is not necessarily an attack on those living in it. For example, if someone decides they want to shoot the light bulbs out on the front porch, that's an attack on the structure. It's not necessarily an attack on you. It could result in injury, depending on the construction of the house and the lack of accuracy on the part of the shooter. But you would be in a bad spot if you decided to respond by shooting back in that particular case. Maybe I apologize if I didn't express myself well in reviewing this particular article. You are fully in the right under castle doctrine to use potentially lethal force to protect your home. Absolutely. The question is, should you? And that's really the issue here. Not all things, there are things that may be legal, but just because you can do it doesn't necessarily mean you should. Does the Bible justify your actions if you do use force to defend your home? The answer is yes and no. As we talked about in our episode about home defense, and I probably brought this up in this exact episode, if I recall correctly. Again, have slept and done many, many things, or not slept a lot during the time since I recorded this. If an intruder is shot and killed, let's say, ambush style, and I think we used that example as a discussion point, maybe in that episode. I think we did bring it up in that episode. Say someone's trying to get into your home and you simply shoot them, Joe Biden style, right through the front door. I'd say you're probably in the wrong biblically, not just legally, although you might go to trial and you might be acquitted, but I don't think the Bible would support that action. If you sit and wait, and this is another story that I think we talked about in one of our Crime and the Ten Commandments episodes. There was this guy in Minnesota, and there were kids in the neighborhood who had broken into his house before when he was at home, and they'd stolen some things, and he knew who the culprits were. So he parked his car in a place to make it look like he wasn't home, and he waited downstairs just inside the door for the kids to break in, and then he very brutally killed both of them. I'm pretty sure you're totally in the wrong for doing that. That even if you are essentially defending your property, I know the law certainly didn't come down on the side of the homeowner in this case, and the Ten Commandments wouldn't either. God will not come down on your side either. You're totally in the wrong. If you warn the person, for example, that they break in, you're at home, you warn them that you have a gun and that you will use it and you will shoot them, then if they persist in their home invading, then you're in the right to shoot them once they break in. If they then disengage and, rethink their life choices and run away, then that's what you want. You want, you win every gunfight that you don't get into. But if you shoot the guy as he's running away, then you're not in the right there, and that's not covered by Exodus 22, verse 2. But in general, yes, if you have somebody breaking into your home and you don't know their intentions, you are justified both by castle doctrine and Exodus 22.2 or verse 2 in using force in defense of your home if you feel like your life is threatened. Okay, this was an email from DC. Listening to this week's episode, as for keeping the receipts on gun control websites, many times the Wayback Machine has archived copies of those pages. Thank you to DC for that email and for reminding me. I had forgotten about that website. It's called the Wayback Machine. They say, as we often say, the internet is forever. People will post things and then delete them and think that they're good. That they're in the clear, but as you know, there are ways to find all that stuff that you may have once posted and are not so proud of now. And I had mentioned in this episode about websites and articles that we had fisked in previous episodes, websites that had entire websites dedicated to biblical support for gun control that no longer exist. They just have gone away. And if you go to the Wayback Machine website, and I'll put a link in the show notes for anybody who's interested, many times you can find those, archived versions of those old websites. So thank you, DC, for reminding me. I really appreciate it. Finally did get... Now, when I tell you at the end of the show that we would appreciate your feedback, and you can visit armedlutheran.us/feedback to leave us a voice message, we got one from David Murdoch, who sent us this message.
Good evening, Lloyd. Is there an EPUB bundle that includes all of your published books to date?
David, thank you for that message, and I apologize for the delayed response. As you know, lots of craziness going on currently. So if I don't respond to you immediately, it's not because I don't love you folks. It's just because things have been nuts. David, there was not a bundle available for all of the books to date in EPUB format, but in your honor, there is now. So go to the Armed Lutheran website, armedlutheran.us, and search for all the books, and you'll see it. Use that exact phrase, all the books, and you will see it. It is 5 EPUB versions of my books for one price at 25% off on the bundle. You'll save 25%. I think it's about $30 for all of the books. You get you get Duty to Defend Volume 2. You get An Executioner's Tale, the short story 30 Pieces of Silver, which is sort of a follow-up kind of prequel to the Executioner's Tale, and you'll get both. Or the first 2 of the 10 Commands fantasy novels. The first one's called The Fifth Command. The second one is called Forsaking All Others. The bundle will expand once I finally get the third book in that series done. I'm working on it as we speak. Again, lots of craziness going on, so that's been delayed, unfortunately. But yes, there is now an all the books bundle. Go to armedlutheran.us, go to the store under books, or search in the search bar at the top of the website, type in all the books, and you will find it. 5 books for one low price. And thank you so much for your question, David. I appreciate it. Nathan Cookson, who is one of our wonderful Reformation Gun Club members, sent us this awesome email. And by the way, if you would like, speaking of the Reformation Gun Club, if you would like to support the show, we don't have any advertising. We don't have any sponsors. We are listener funded. We pay the bills thanks to the generosity of people like Nathan, who send us an annual contribution of any amount, and it helps us pay for all this awesome stuff. It keeps the lights on and keeps the hosting going. Pays for the website and all that good stuff. So if you would like to join Nathan and the many others who are supporting the show, visit armedlutheran.us/gun club. Okay, Nathan has sent us this email. He says, I'm reading Duty to Defend, and in the chapter Never Offend Yourselves, if you bring this chapter up in a future podcast, the example of Gary Plauché is apropos. He did not give the state time to punish his son's kidnapper and molester. The evildoer was in custody, being brought through the airport after being extradited back to face trial. I've seen him held up as an example of a father protecting his son, and my first thought was along those lines. However, while reading this chapter and pondering what it says, I realized it was repaying evil with evil, no matter how tempting it would be to do so as a father. Nathan, thank you for the email. Excellent point. And by the way, yes, I do mention Gary Plauché in one of the episodes. I cannot remember which one. It may have been. It wasn't Love Your Enemy. I think I have another episode in the can that has not been released yet. Let me see. I don't remember, to be honest. I do have a post I do have an episode that mentions Gary Plauché. So good catch there. And it may have actually been that particular episode. It might have been the Vengeance is Mine episode 433, which was the beginning of the it's the first episode in that series. Is that right? Did I mention it? I think it is. I think I maybe mentioned it in episode 433. But yes, Gary Plauché did come to mind, and it was a situation that I do remember. I mean, as a father, you kind of cheer for the guy, and you think, yeah, that's exactly what ought to happen. And I can understand the motivation, and I can understand the anger, but not a good example to be held up, because that was an example. For those of you who don't know, Gary Plauché discovered that his son had been molested by a man. I think it was like over a long period. And when he became aware of it, when it came to light, the man was arrested. He was being extradited back to his hometown to face trial. Gary Plauché waited in an airport at a phone booth and waited for the police with this guy in tow. You know, they had him in cuffs and they were walking him through the airport. And Plauché, you can see him in the background. There's video of it. Plauché sees them, hangs up the phone, turns around, pulls out a gun, and blows the guy's brains out. And then just hands the gun to the police. He pled not guilty by reason of insanity, which I can totally understand. As a father, I would be absolutely... I can't imagine what a parent goes through knowing that his child has been abused in such a way. But it's not a good example, or put it a better way, it's a perfect example of repaying evil with evil. Yes, what this guy did was terrible and awful, yes, it was an act of vengeance, and it was evil for Gary Plauché to do what he did. It was not his vocation to walk up to his son's abuser and take vengeance on him. As understandable as it might feel in hearing and reading that story, it's not appropriate. Let's just leave it at that. But anyway, yes, Nathan, I appreciate you bringing that up. And yes, in one of, I want to say it was episode 433, I did indeed talk about Gary Plauché, as I did just now. Anyway, back to Merwin Wren, who commented on episode 437, the article about training my hands for war, which is in Psalm 144 verse 1. I've seen more than one use this passage to justify use of force. I was always skeptical of this position, but your book articulated my skepticism. Thank God for implanting that discernment in me, even though I didn't understand why until I started reading, starting at page 31. Merwin, thank you again. Yeah, I did too. I saw this on plenty of Pro 2A websites. I've seen it on flags and bumper stickers and patches at gun shows. It's even, ironically, it's even listed in the prayers section on armedlutheran.us. But that's why I wanted to examine it for the book. I wanted someone to take a look at this because I didn't feel, even though it was cool and I saw it all these different places, it just, something about it didn't quite feel right. And I wanted to someone to delve into it besides me, who could help me understand if it was right or not. And it's not. So, just as a spoiler for you. Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of Armed Lutheran Radio. Be sure to check out the next episode coming up this weekend. That would be episode 441, Spears into Pruning Hooks. Until then, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.